dear Andreas and Bilal. This is a great pleasure. Apologies for my immediate surrounding. I'm still at home. Hopefully today is my last day of self-isolation. There is so much to do, and I'd like to go back to the office as of tomorrow. I'd like to express our gratitude to the European Parliament for organizing and helping us with this meeting. We appreciate the long-standing support of the European Parliament when it comes to our European aspirations and the continuous support of the political families represented in the Parliament has been there over a number of years. We also appreciate the support through the Jean Monnet dialogue that resulted in amendments to the law on assembly, and we have an ongoing work on the rules of procedure. I would like to welcome the adoption of the European Parliament resolution at AFET with vast majority, including the compromise that was reached over the wording on accession and bilateral issues which should not be used to block the accession process. I cannot but avoid mentioning some of the amendments that were voted upon today. I'd like to express regret and disappointment on the amendments 4 and 5 submitted by Mr. Galler on behalf of the EPP. And I would also like to express regret that the amendment number 2 submitted by Belka, Mr. Pizzula, Fayon, and Schieder did not find majority. I know that we don't have too much time, and I know that it's not easy to follow a meeting organized like this. This is the first time I come across this digital platform for meetings. So I'm gonna try to be very telegraphic in terms of where we are. Obviously, few days are now between today and the elections in neighboring Bulgaria. We are very committed to continue the bilateral efforts and all other efforts, including the Portuguese presidency, with a view to find a way around or through the issue and to have a situation where Bulgaria will join the rest of the member states and we have a consensus on adopting the negotiating framework and finally start the intergovernmental conference. A lot is at stake, including the credibility of the European Union in the region. This year, my country marks 2 decades since the signing of the Association and Stabilization Agreement and 16 years since we got the status of a candidate country. We've had a number of reports of the Commission suggesting start of accession talks. We managed to resolve the unthinkable, probably the biggest dispute resolution since Dayton in our region, the name issue with Greece. Then we had issues with the process that was resolved with the new methodology. We have the green light in March. It's really high time to start the accession process. If we are able to do so, this will be a triple victory for us, for Sofia, and for the European Union. It will give a great signal to the region. The issue, which is somewhat not fully appreciated and understood, is that the challenges we face are not the usual bilateral issues. We don't have a territorial dispute. We don't have a dispute with economic consequences or consequences for the environment. We are not discussing close
I'm afraid we lost the Deputy Prime Minister, but I would suggest not to try to... You have him again? Okay, then please.
Mr. Dimitrov, could you please press again the speak button? Thank you.
Okay. You lost me a while ago or a few seconds ago?
Few seconds.
Okay. So I just want to underline that when it comes to bilateral issues, we have to take into account European values and principles. And we see the European Union as a community of values where diversity, cultural and linguistic, is appreciated, protected, fostered, and celebrated. And we're going to try to convince our neighbors that this is the only way to build upon the Friendship Treaty, an important historic process that we have started in 2017. Now, it would have been a mistake to focus only on that challenge, and this is why we decided to focus and streamline the efforts of the government by adopting a reform agenda that we named Agenda Europe at Home. The idea is to help our friends in DG NEAR by producing and delivering results mostly around the first cluster of the new methodology, the fundamentals cluster, electoral reform, judiciary, fight against corruption and organized crime, public administration reform, fundamental rights and media, economic governance, statistics, public procurement, plus environmental issues. We are also very close to updating the national program for the adoption of the acquis, which will be a strategic umbrella document for the accession process that will serve as a basis for the bilateral screening and preparation of the negotiating positions. Very briefly on some of the more important reform steps. In the judiciary, as you know, the legislative framework is adopted. It's now a matter of implementation, not by the government, but by the Judicial Council and the Council of the Public Prosecutors. We've had progress in this regard in terms of implementing the adopted legislation. And so far, 10 judges have been dismissed on the grounds of unprofessional and incompetent performance in office. We adopted also the strategies for the judiciary and the prosecution, including on human resources, and recruitment of staff in judiciary and prosecution is ongoing. Digitalization of courtrooms as well as an important process. Recently, we've had several important judgments, some of them related to the former cases of the Special Prosecutor's Office. We've had an improved cooperation between the State Commission Against Corruption and all national institutions when it comes to follow-up and implementation of their findings and recommendations. Also, premises, finally, that issue has been resolved, and additional resources to increase the capacity of this important institution in the fight against corruption. Now, you may have seen that the recent reports of the Transparency International marked a negative trend. I don't think we should downplay that. I think on the contrary, we should increase the efforts in that regard. At the same time, the recent report of the Freedom House put us as a country that has made biggest progress in Europe when it comes to the state of our democracy. I mentioned that the Parliament adopted the Law on Prevention and Protection Against Discrimination, and we have managed the issue of premises for the new Commission against discrimination. We have also some important step when it comes to public finances management. For instance, the law on the system of internal financial control in the public sector entered parliamentary procedure, and the economic reform program for 21-23 has been adopted. Because we don't have too much time, I don't know whether I should say a few words on the IPA state of play. Maybe I will only say that the efforts to implement IPA 2 are ongoing. The contracting rate is close to 60% and the payment rate is close to 50%. We are well underway in preparing for IPA 3. The IPA strategic responses and annual actional programs for 21 and 22 were adopted on 12th of March by the government and forwarded to the European Commission for a maturity assessment. We were among the few countries, IPA beneficiaries, that had all action fishes for 21 and 22 fully cleared for relevance assessment. The WBIF and the single project pipeline processes gained much attention with the introduction of the Economic and Investment Plan promoted by Commissioner Varhey. In early December, the government endorsed the revised single project pipeline for energy, environment, transport, social and digital sectors based on the approval of the National Investment Committee. We submitted 7 projects in an amount of almost 280 million euros under the last WEIF call for technical assistance and investment grant. I will stop here. Thank you for your attention.